Abilene, Kansas. The summer of 1872 was a heavy, breathless thing. The sun hung over the prairie like a glowing gold coin. It turned the tall grass into a sea of shimmering bronze. Sarah Miller stood in the yard of her small farm. She was 25 years old. She was already a widow. The red headscarf she wore was a splash of color against the pale sky. It was the only bright thing left in her world. Her hands were submerged in a heavy zinc washtub. The lye soap stung the small cuts on her fingers. She did not mind the pain. Hard work kept the ghosts of her past at a distance. Sarah scrubbed a heavy denim shirt with rhythmic precision. Her breath came in short, tired puffs. A few feet away, Caleb Thorne sat on the edge of the wooden porch. He was a man of few words and steady hands. He wore a simple beige shirt and sturdy brown suspenders. His boots were dusted with the gray soil of the Kansas plains. Caleb was a blacksmith by trade and a neighbor by choice. He had been a regular fixture on Sarah's porch for nearly 2 years. He never asked for much. He just showed up. Sometimes he fixed a broken fence post. Sometimes he sharpened her kitchen knives. Today, he was just watching her. His eyes followed the movement of her arms. He saw the strength in her shoulders. He saw the way she tucked a loose strand of blonde hair behind her ear. The silence between them was not empty. It was full of things they had not found the courage to say. The heat shimmered off the roof of the barn. A bay horse stood tied to the rail nearby. It swished its tail at the flies. In the distance, the lowing of cattle drifted on the wind. Abilene was a booming town back then. The Chisholm Trail brought thousands of longhorns and rowdy cowboys. Over 600,000 cattle moved through these lands that year. The air smelled of dust, leather, and sweat. But out here, on the edge of the flats, it was quiet. Caleb leaned back against the rough-hewn cedar post. He looked at the horizon where the Kansas Pacific Railway cut through the earth. The iron rails were a symbol of progress for some. For Sarah, they were a reminder of what she had lost. Her husband, James, had died helping lay those tracks. A freak accident with a blasting cap had taken him in an instant. That was 3 years ago. Sarah had stayed on the land because it was all she had left. It was her dignity. It was her memory of a love that was supposed to last forever. Caleb cleared his throat softly. "You're going to scrub the color right out of that fabric, Sarah." His voice was deep and gentle. Sarah looked up, wiping her forehead with her forearm. She gave him a tired but beautiful smile. "Cleanliness is next to godliness, Caleb," or so the preacher says. Caleb watched her for another long minute, his heart aching with unspoken love. He felt a familiar ache in his chest. He had loved her since they were children in Missouri. He had watched her marry another man. He had stood by her side when she buried her husband. He had been the one to bring her flour and sugar when the winter of '71 nearly starved her. He reached down and picked up a piece of dry straw. He turned it over in his fingers. "You're a remarkable woman," he said quietly. "You've kept this place running all on your own." Sarah went back to her scrubbing. "I do what needs doing," she said. "The cows don't care if I'm tired." Caleb stood up from the porch. He walked toward her, stopping just a few feet away. The smell of sun-dried grass and lye soap filled the air. He looked at her hands, red and wrinkled from the water. He thought about the life she deserved. A life with less toil and more laughter. Caleb stood up from the porch and walked closer. "You know, Sarah, whoever ends up marrying you is going to be a very lucky man." He meant it as a compliment. He meant it to be light and easy. He expected her to laugh or shake her head. Instead, the yard went perfectly still. The wind died down for a heartbeat. Sarah did not look up. She gripped the edge of the washtub so hard her knuckles turned white. The water in the tub rippled. A single tear escaped her eye and fell into the soapy suds. She stood there for what felt like an eternity. Then she leaned forward until her forehead almost touched the rim of the tub. Her voice was nothing more than a ragged breath. "I always wished it was you," she whispered. Caleb felt the world shift under his feet. He took a step closer, his voice trembling. "What did you say?" He was not sure he had heard her correctly. He took a step closer, reaching out as if to touch her shoulder. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice trembling. Sarah turned her head toward him. Her face was flushed.
Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You heard me, Caleb Thorne," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I've been waiting for you to see me for years. I've been standing right here in front of you, and all you ever talk about is how lucky some other man will be." Caleb was stunned into silence. He thought he was being respectful. He thought he was giving her time to heal. He did not realize that his silence was a wall she could not climb. He looked at the red scarf on her head. He remembered the day she first wore it. It was the day he had come back from the war in 1865. She had been waiting at the station. He had been a broken man with a limp and night terrors. He did not think he was good enough for her then. He did not think he was good enough for her now. But the look in her eyes told a different story. It told a story of longing and quiet desperation. Before we continue with this emotional turning point, I want to take a moment to welcome you. If you are enjoying this journey back to the Old West, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us bring these stories of love and resilience to life. What would you do if you were in Sarah's shoes? Would you have the courage to speak your truth? Let us know in the comments below. Now, let's get back to that dusty yard in Abilene.
Caleb looked at the horizon, his mind racing. The year 1872 was a time of great change in Kansas. The cattle trade was at its peak. The town was full of vice and danger. Wild Bill Hickok had been the marshal just the year before. Violence was common, and life was often short. In a world so uncertain, Caleb realized how foolish he had been. He had wasted so much time being careful. He looked back at Sarah. She had gone back to the tub. Her movements were jerky and upset. "Sarah, look at me," he commanded softly. She ignored him. She scrubbed a shirt with unnecessary force. "Sarah, please." She stopped and looked at him. Her chin was trembling. "I thought you didn't want me," he confessed. "I thought I was just the neighbor who fixed your roof. I thought you were still in love with James." Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I will always love the memory of James," she said. "He was a good man and a good husband. But he is gone, Caleb. He's been in the ground for 3 years. And you've been sitting on my porch every Tuesday for 2 of them. Do you think I let just anyone sit on my porch?" Caleb felt a wave of relief wash over him, but he also felt a deep sense of guilt. He had not told her everything. He had not told her why he was really there every week. He had not told her about the secret he was keeping. But Caleb carried a heavier secret. For nearly a year, he had been quietly paying out property taxes by working double shifts at the forge and selling his own cattle. He had even sold his father's gold watch 3 months ago. But the large mortgage payment due at the end of August was more than he could raise alone. Silas Vance, the greedy banker, had bought the upstream land and planned to divert the creek before winter. "Sarah, there's something you need to know," Caleb said. His heart was heavy as lead. "The bank, Silas Vance. He's been asking about this land." Sarah's expression hardened. "I know about Silas," she said. "He sent a man here last week. Offered me a pittance for the house and the barn. I told him to get off my property." Caleb nodded. "He doesn't take no for an answer, Sarah. He's been buying up the water rights along the creek. Without water, this land is worthless." Sarah looked toward the small stream that ran at the edge of her property. It was the lifeblood of her garden and her livestock. "He can't do that," she whispered. "He's already done it," Caleb said. "I tried to stop him at the land office, but he has friends in Topeka. He has the law on his side." The weight of the situation settled over them.
In the 1870s, the law was often whatever the man with the most money said it was. Sarah sat down on the edge of the washtub. She looked small and defeated for the first time. "So that's it then?" she asked. "I lose everything?" Caleb walked over and knelt in the dirt in front of her. He took her wet, soapy hands in his own. "No," he said firmly. "You're not losing anything. I have a plan, but it's risky, and it requires us to be more than just neighbors." Sarah looked into his eyes. "Tell me," she said. Caleb knelt in the dirt in front of her and took her wet, soapy hands in his own. "Sarah, I don't want to marry you just to save the farm. I've loved you since we were children back in Missouri. The farm only gave me the courage to finally speak." He looked into her eyes. "Will you marry me, Sarah Miller? Not for the land, but for me?" Sarah smiled through her tears. "On one condition," she said. "What's that?" "You never pay a bill behind my back again." Caleb laughed, a sound of pure joy. "I reckon I can manage that," he said. He pulled her into his arms. They stood there in the middle of the Kansas prairie, two people who had been through the fire and come out stronger. The wedding was a small affair at the end of August. They held it under the big cottonwood tree by the creek. Half the town of Abilene showed up. From a distance, Silas Vance watched bitterly from his carriage, knowing he had lost. He knew he had been beaten. The law was on their side now. Sarah wore the same faded blue dress she had been washing the day she told Caleb she loved him, but she kept the red scarf tied around her bouquet of wild sunflowers. It was a symbol of her resilience. As they stood before the preacher, the wind picked up. It carried the scent of coming rain. The drought was finally breaking. When the preacher asked if anyone had an objection, the crowd was silent. Everyone knew these two belonged together. They had seen the quiet sacrifices. They had seen Caleb working the forge late into the night. They had seen Sarah tending to the sick in town without asking for a penny. They were the heart of the community. After the ceremony, there was a dance in the barn. Old Man Higgins played the fiddle late into the night. Caleb spun Sarah around the floor. She looked lighter than she had in years. The weight of widowhood and debt had been lifted. She was no longer Sarah Miller, the widow. She was Sarah Thorne, a woman with a future. As the night wore on, Caleb took her out to the porch. The moon was a silver sliver in the sky. "You happy, Sarah?" he asked. She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I'm more than happy, Caleb," she said. "I'm home." He kissed her forehead. "I told you," he whispered. "Whoever married you would be a lucky man." Sarah looked up at him and winked. "And I told you," she replied. "I always wished it was you." Their love story had finally begun. From that day on, they never faced the prairie alone again. The years that followed were not always easy, but they faced them side by side. They survived the hard times and built a life full of love. They named their first son James, after the good man who came before. Caleb held the baby gently and whispered, "A good name." Sarah never forgot that day by the washtub. She kept the red scarf in a cedar chest as a reminder that love can grow even in the hottest summer. In her final days, her hands were too weak to scrub clothes, but they were still strong enough to hold Caleb's. "Was I the lucky one?" she whispered. Caleb kissed her fingers softly. "No, Sarah," he said. "I was." Thank you so much for staying with us until the end. This heartwarming story was brought to life with the help of AI storytelling tools. If this tale touched your heart, please leave a comment. Have you ever waited too long to tell someone you love them? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more beautiful Old West love stories. Until next time, cherish the ones you love. It's never too late to say what's in your heart.